Now, lastly, I would like to talk about a very important issue. That is how to draw meta-inferences from mixed methods results. Now, let's first talk about what meta-inferences are. Meta-inferences are theoretical statements or narratives or stories inferred from an integration of the findings from the quantitative and qualitative strand. So basically, it is the meta-inferences that bring out that added value of a mixed method study. Remember from the first session that you should only use mixed method studies when the two parts combined actually yield more results than when you would have done them separately. That is exactly what you point out with the meta-inferences. So you should explicitly describe that added value and tell the reader what do we know that we wouldn't have known otherwise. And that could be, for example, that you have convergent results. So both the qualitative and the qualitative results converge. They say the same thing, basically. They confirm the results from the other strand. Or the results could be complementary. So they basically add up to a bigger picture. Another way of adding value is that they are dissonant. That one strand says, for example, the qualitative strand, that there should be a relationship, that people report about something, but when you go to the larger population, you don't see that relationship. It doesn't seem to be significant. So maybe it's not for everybody. Maybe there are different factors at play. So dissonant results can also add value to your study. Now, the last part is the mixed methods validation. Here you show integrative efficacy. So basically that you effectively integrate it and that integration is theoretically consistent. So basically that there's a linkage between the parts. Then integrative transferability. That means that you can generalize your results to other contexts or settings. You need to validate that that is possible. And lastly, integrative correspondence. That basically means that you need to demonstrate, discuss in those meta-inferences that you satisfied the initial purpose with your study. It's always important to point out that purpose that we talked about in the second session. And here you basically refer back to that and you say whether you satisfied it. So what we can take away from that is that meta-inferences represent an integrative view and are considered essential components of a mixed methods research. You need to demonstrate that the two parts yielded results that were bigger than if you had used those two strands independently from one another. Maybe to illustrate that with an example, again taken from the reading, and we will talk about it in the live session. Here we have that study that I talked about where we identified user roles and then we conducted interviews afterwards to understand why they exist. And here in the left column you can see different user roles. For example, there was a user type that was very active with different types of communication and collaboration tools, digital communication and collaboration tools. So from the quantitative data, we were able to show that they send a lot of emails, frequent dialogues, and a lot of collaboration on a platform. With a second part where we showed statistical relationships to variables such as the hierarchical position. Now that was all the quantitative part. And the right column are the qualitative insights. Now, without the user roles, we wouldn't have been able to ask those questions regarding this kind of user behavior. So matching the qualitative insights with a user role would not have been possible had we only done qualitative interviews. We would have probably found a lot of reasons for why users behave differently, but we would not have been able to connect them with specific types of behavior in a way that we did with the quantitative data. So with the qualitative insights, we were able to say, well, those all around us, those highly active peoples, they seem to have a broad range of different tasks. They need to structure documentation, and they need to be very efficient in coordinative tasks. That is an example. You will read the paper and we can talk about whether you think that using a mixed methods approach for the study was a good idea and what you would have done differently, maybe. So I'm looking forward to the interactive session here, and I would like to finish with a wrap up of the general guidelines of mixed methods research. Now, first, you need to decide on the appropriateness of a mixed methods approach. That means, is it necessary to do both things in one paper, in one study, and what are the benefits of doing so? Basically, you need to derive a purpose. Based on that purpose, you develop a strategy for mixing in your research. So basically, you think about when the different components come into play. Do you want to do the qualitative study first and then the quantitative study? Or do you want to do it the other way around? Or is it maybe necessary to do them at the same time? And then, once you made that decision, you can develop a strategy for collecting and analyzing your mixed methods data. And when you've done that, you lastly draw meta-inferences from a mixed method study to demonstrate that your results really added that value and really satisfied that purpose that you set out, or that was the reason for your mixed methods research inquiry. Lastly, please use guidelines to write your paper, but do not necessarily explain every decision explicitly and in detail in your paper. You can demonstrate that you know why mixed methods research is necessary, in which context. You can demonstrate your purpose. It is not necessary to show every aspect in a written form. Now, you will see some papers that have a large appendix with a lot of details, and I'm sure that the journals that they submitted to asked them to do so. But really follow those guidelines first. Don't necessarily explain everything, because that will make it difficult to read your thesis or your paper. Well, that was it for mixed methods research. I hope you were able to take away some insights, and I'm looking forward to the live session.